The Bills are positioning to make a shocking move as Terry Pegula is hosting this head coaching candidate as Brandon Beane and the front office of this Buffalo Bills team is looking for a replacement for their 9-year head coach Sean McDermott, and Bills fans are livid at the situation already. But if the Bills bring in this head coach, there is going to be lots of controversy around the decision and around what Brandon Beane's plan really is. Hello everyone and welcome to Bills Digest. Josh Schreiber here, and we've got an interesting video as a new report was leaked this morning suggesting that the Bills are looking at a familiar foe as their head coach. Many of you guys may remember this picture from earlier this past season after the Bills fell to the Miami Dolphins. It was Mike McDaniel driving past a Buffalo Bills party of some sort in downtown Miami. Mike McDaniel, throwing jabs, some friendly jabs at the Bills fans in the area, and the Bills fans retaliating. But now a new report coming out that maybe this man who is throwing jabs at Bills fans in downtown Miami after finally beating the Bills might just be heading to Orchard Park. The Bills met with candidates in Orchard Park, but they flew to Florida to meet with Mike McDaniel today. This report coming out just a couple of hours ago from Diana Rossini. And before we really get into this video, I do want to take a moment to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video. Before we get into this video today, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. When you download Kalshi using the link below and partner code DIGESTNFL, you'll get $20 when you trade your first $100. Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the U.S. On their platform, you can trade yes/no on real-life events, sports, elections, news, and pretty much everything. Whether you're in California, Texas, Buffalo, New York, or anywhere else around the country, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. For sports fans, trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, or player performances, all on a regulated market where you can cash out any time. For example, you can trade on who the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills will be. That is going to be all the rage here on Bills Digest. It is genuinely a smarter way to use your sports or news knowledge, and you can close positions whenever you want. So, download Kalshi with the link in the description, and don't forget to use code DIGESTNFL to get your $20 bonus. And thank you once again to Kalshi for sponsoring this video. So more on who this next head coach may be. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. But it's looking like the Bills are kind of keying in on some guys right now. And we heard that this may be a long process. But the fact that they are flying to Florida to meet with Mike McDaniel, I think says a lot and should be reason to believe that they may have a serious, interest in this. And here's a look at exactly who is flying in to Florida to meet with Mike McDaniel. It'll be the Pegulas, Brandon Beane, of course, execs Brian Gaine and Terrence Gray. And then the surprising one is the quarterback Josh Allen will be in on, it seems like, all of the interviews for their head coach. And of note, the first 3 interviews Buffalo had were in Buffalo. So this is saying something that they are flying to make Mike McDaniel this time. We'll see how the rest of the head coaching interviews shape out as time passes. But the fascinating part of the interview process is that Josh Allen will have a significant say on the next head coach. And as you read earlier, he will be in person for seemingly all of these interviews. So something to keep an eye on there, because not super common that you see a player this involved in the head coaching search. And originally my thought process was, okay, great, like he's going to have a big say, but several people have come out and said maybe that's not the best idea. Ryan Fitzpatrick ended up saying that into this video today. Ryan Fitzpatrick came out and said he doesn't agree with the decision to have Josh Allen be a big part of these head coach interviews, because you don't need a friend for Josh Allen. You need a head coach and a leader. And there are some serious question marks around whether Mike McDaniel is that type of leader. Sal Capaccio, a big-time media person in Buffalo on the radio show and WGR, he's a very smart person and coach, but his questions would be, as a leader, what he is and what's needed in Buffalo. He said himself they needed a culture reset. Tua was the one calling out players for missing meetings, not McDaniel. So there's a lot to really dig into if this is the move the Bills opt to make. And this is a huge reason why, me personally, I am not a big fan of Mike McDaniel as the head coach. With that being said, there is also a lot to be excited about. The first one being in that his run game mindset really does gel with James Cook and the Buffalo offensive line. And additionally, he is known for loving speedy players. And sometimes to a fault, because there have been some that have not seemed like they're not really going to work out early on. When you look at, a guy like Jalen Wright with the Miami Dolphins, just a really speed-heavy running back out of college, has not done anything in the NFL. But there have been other massive examples of guys that have panned out. That being, bringing in Jonnu Smith, who then became one of the best tight ends in all of the NFL. Having Devon Achane, a sneaky guy who ended up having career years, or really just developing into a top running back in the NFL with the Miami Dolphins. And then, of course, Raheem Mostert, who led the league in touchdowns his season with the Miami Dolphins. So plenty of guys that he has made into phenomenal players, and the Bills desperately need some more athleticism at receiver. They need some receivers that can spread out the field for Josh Allen, and having a guy like Mike McDaniel could be scary for a Josh Allen offense if you're able to have that. And this is what Eric Turner, a guy who is well respected in the NFL community with his film analysis, he really talks about the constant motion that Mike McDaniel has. This is a guy that developed under Kyle Shanahan's system and has really been a promising offensive play caller. If he does not sign with the Bills as their head coach, he will be the offensive coordinator with the Los Angeles Chargers. So this is a guy that personally I would love as my offensive coordinator. I would not love as my head coach as much, just because you're in this Super Bowl window. You cannot afford to bring in a guy who is not an elite leader. I'm not so sure Mike McDaniel is. Maybe it's because it was a very dysfunctional situation with Miami. Tua is a terrible quarterback that he turned into a very solid quarterback at times. The NFL kind of figured it out a little bit, but I think it would be dangerous with Josh Allen. Another promising stat before the Dolphins offense kind of went into the gutter a little bit recently, but in 2022, the Dolphins were the number 6 offense early in the season. They ended up being even better than that, but they were facing the third toughest schedule of defenses, half the year without Tua, and Tua was terrible when he was playing. So that was something that really gave people a lot to be excited about with Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. Now, the downside, coming from a Dolphins fan here on Twitter, is that his teams are 4-24 when trailing at halftime. His offense didn't score a point in the third quarter this season after Halloween. Miami was outscored 130-27 in the third quarter, and he has the worst challenge percentage of any head coach over 4 seasons. I have been calling out Sean McDermott because he has been such a poor challenger, really until this past season when he had a really good season in the challenging department. Not sure how big of a deal that is, but something to keep an eye on. Also, some things can explain away these other stats is that the Miami Dolphins were just simply not that good, and when they are one-dimensional, they are really hard. It is really hard for them to mount a comeback when you have a quarterback as bad as Tua Tagovailoa has been, especially this season. He looked absolutely putrid. So I'm not super worried about that. I think the offense would be demonic with Mike McDaniel at the helm. My question would be the defense, because that has been the real reason why the Bills have been knocked out of the playoffs every single year under Sean McDermott. So that is my big issue there. Let me know in the comments what you think about hiring Mike McDaniel as the head coach. Is it the right move? Is it something that they should avoid? Let me know. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time here on Bills Digest as we break down all of the coaching options for the Buffalo Bills.